everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Chick to Chick. I'm Flora Pastorero.
And I am Carrie Perry.
We today are talking about something that is a real controversial issue here in Pennsylvania, the issue of marijuana. So let's go back to the beginning here. First of all, medical marijuana. It became legal here in Pennsylvania in 2016. Yeah. The dispensaries started to open, and then medical marijuana was available to patients over the past year. And within that past year, the governor just came out with some figures saying that it helped 83,000 Pennsylvanians who are suffering from various diseases, that they have been able to make use of medical marijuana. So now we're on to the next phase of this. Now the conversation has changed to legalizing recreational marijuana. Is this something that should be happening in the state? Well, according to surveys, more than 50% of Pennsylvanians are in favor of this. The lieutenant governor is now on a statewide listening tour. He plans to hit all 67 counties he wants to hear. And so far, the feedback is coming back 4-1 in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana.
Yeah. And, we were talking earlier, in background in my family, my brother, he had really badly injured his foot, and he had used pot, used marijuana. So he didn't want to be able to have oral medication all the time. And he just loved it. Now, he was living in Colorado. We already know, but
Yep.
It's not just Rocky Mountain High anymore for a reason.
Nope.
But there it was something that really helped him. When he came back to Pennsylvania, now he is in a mode of, I'm going to be a criminal, and this is in the 2006.
This was before medical marijuana was
medical
legal.
Marijuana. So the conversation has shifted, but for me, this is going to be a really important thing for me to talk about, because I kind of see both sides of the value in it. And like I said, I had this in my family, and unfortunately, my brother ended up shifting over to what we have this opioid crisis now, and our family, we had that in our family, and that was because he had to shift it from what he used as his marijuana to help him and move that over a little too much, because he was in trouble. He was in trouble. So I like this conversation. I'm really excited about this podcast today.
This is personal to you. There's another aspect to this. There's the economic aspect, and how the state could potentially benefit from this. And for that reason, we are calling this episode the Pot Payout in PA. And our guest today is State Auditor General Eugene DiPasquale. General, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today.
No, thanks for having me today.
It's great to have you here. First of all, you support legalizing you support legalizing marijuana on a recreational level, and you think it should be decriminalized, the possession of pot. Why is that, General?
Well, first of all, let me start off with, I just believe when you think about the war on drugs, I think the last 40 to 50 years, our war on drugs is probably one of the most failed wars in the history of the United States. So I come at this from an approach of, I think it's just a better way to handle the issue. I know there is one of the things I hate about our politics today, it's either 100% positive or 100% negative. And I do think that there are some drawbacks, but the benefits dramatically outweigh. So let's go through this. Number one, look, there are people that are in pain. Not all of them can get a prescription for medical marijuana. I think marijuana is a way to handle that. Number two, the idea that we are still throwing people in jail for marijuana is just absurd. The cost of that is not protecting the public is absolutely insane. Number three, look, we know from statistics about 9% of Pennsylvania adults are already doing this. And they do it recreationally. They're not harming anybody. Why don't we get the tax revenue out of this? Colorado did this, and we're 2.5 times the size of Colorado. So if we did this similar to what happened in Colorado, we would stand to benefit tax-wise about $581 million. And fourth, and I think this is really when you come down to it, I think if we do this the right way, we can actually limit teen access to this, make the drug safer, and I just come down to this. Prohibition failed. I mean, we tried this with alcohol. It didn't work. Look, I've never smoked a cigarette, but I mean, that's legal, and it's actually significantly more dangerous than marijuana. And adults are doing this. Let's legalize it. Let's regulate it. Let's keep it out of the hands of kids. We can use it to grow businesses and make the tax revenue from it, and just stop the insanity of throwing people in jail for this.
I couldn't agree with you more. My head is nodding so much it actually hurts. I'm like a bobblehead.
She's going,
You know,
yes.
I really am.
Yes,
I mean, and I come at that from a lot of personal things from my family. And you spoke to me personally in the things that you said, because you hit on every single thing that had to do with what my brother, my family occurred. So I really am interested in the economic standpoint of this, because you do feel there's a benefit to the state. I mean, we're talking, was that 1.66 billion boost to the economy, and that's pretty tremendous. And how did that figure come about?
Well, it comes about from the additional tax revenue we would get. So this is, sometimes you say, okay, if you increase the state's income tax, you may get revenue, but there's also potential drawback from that. Like there's a pro and con to that, or the sales tax. Whenever there's a property tax increase, the state or the school district may get more revenue, but there's a drawback to that. This is something that is, in a sense, found money. It's something that's happening already that generates revenue into the state. And the cost is already happening. Look, there's already a law enforcement issue with this. Driving under the influence is already illegal. So the drawback to this issue already exists. So it would, in a sense, be found revenue. The other part of this is it's actually a way to start a new industry. You're allowing businesses to start around this. You regulate them, and you make sure that they're selling a cleaner product and certainly what's getting sold on the street. And there's this other part of this where, look, we need to do something for our rural Pennsylvania farmers. It's been really tough for them. And I think growing marijuana and hemp is a way to help reinvigorate our rural Pennsylvania economy as well.
Yeah, you brought up hemp into this conversation, which is it's exploding right now in this state. I'm kind of curious. You keep citing this figure of $580 million in tax revenue. Where did you come up with that figure, and how would that money be used to benefit Pennsylvanians? Right. And would part of it, in fact, help people who are suffering from drug addictions?
A couple of things. First, we used existing rates of taxes on cigarettes, for example. Now, look, how you would sell it by pack versus unit, that's obviously up for debate, but we used that rate as a sort of a ballpark. Then we took, according to, I think it was Pew, but it was a reputable survey that said roughly 9% of Pennsylvania adults, when we say adults, 18 and older, we use the legal cigarette age, admit to doing this already. And then what we did was we looked at Colorado, and they brought in about $250 million, and we're 2.5 times the size of Colorado. So those three areas we used to come up with the estimate. Now, I want to be clear. It's an estimate, $581 million.
All right. So what do you intend to use that money? What are you going to do with it?
Look, I put out a plan. I thought most of it should go for public education and some of it for drug rehabilitation programs. But having said that, I am the Auditor General of Pennsylvania. I am certainly not a king or a czar or whatever term
You're
you want to
not?
use.
You're not?
No,
I thought you were in charge.
That's right, for good or for bad. So at the end of the day, if this is legalized, it would be up to the General Assembly, the Pennsylvania legislature, and the governor to determine that. But I believe the bulk of it should go towards public education and also towards health-related industries, whether it be drug rehabilitation or other types of uses. That's where I think it would be best used.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. There's going to be critics, obviously, and the movement with MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I feel that they're going to be the ones who are going to chime in a lot more, and then there will be those who will say, well, is it going to bring in more crime? I mean, I know how I personally feel about it, but I'm just curious. What do you think about that?
Well, we have certainly some, and let's just talk facts. I mean, look at the other states where this has already happened. If you believe the critics, Colorado now doesn't exist as a state, and Washington State's imploding. Yeah, but let's just look at the facts. In all of these states, there's no movement to reverse course. Why? Because it's working. Now, it's not working 100%. There's no significant change in any public policy that works 100%, but it is working. Crime is actually down. Dangerous drugs are down. And here's the part when I say it really is a gripping part of this story. And that is, veterans right now cannot get prescribed through the VA because of marijuana being a Schedule I narcotic at the federal level. So veterans that are wounded in battle that come back to the United States actually can't get this. So if we legalize in Pennsylvania, it would open the door for our veterans to do this. And they are right now, which helps. And so in the states that have legalized it, it's reduced opioid addiction in those states as well.
Well, you just brought up the opioid addiction, and a lot of people are going to say to you, hey, you start with marijuana. This is now going to become a gateway drug to more illicit drugs. We already have a problem in this state with the opioid epidemic. Right. We already have a problem in this state with people dying of heroin overdoses. Yes. So why do you want to do this? Why do you want to bring another drug into this and cause even more problems? Right. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, the science of this issue is the equivalent of saying rub butter on a burn. And what I mean by that is the scientific community is clear. Marijuana is not a gateway drug. It's bad science from the 70s. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't still people that believe it. There's people that believe we didn't land on the moon. So that belief is out there. Scientifically speaking, it is incorrect. Now, just from a common sense standpoint, again, for people that know me well, I'm a health nut. I do, the Spartan races and all this other stuff, and I've never used it. And the marijuana advocates sort of laugh and say I'm the perfect spokesperson for them because I'm so boring. I don't know if that's something for me to put on my tombstone one day, and it's somewhat sad, but it is what it is, right? But what I am suggesting on this is that it is a controversial topic, and when you weigh all the factors, there are dramatically more benefits than drawbacks to regulating and taxing this and managing the issue the right way. If we are going to be under the illusion that people aren't smoking marijuana, and then if you legalize it, people then are, look, there's nothing I can do to people that are deluding themselves, but I come back to prohibition failed. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't work. I think there are certain things there's certain things that are so dangerous you shouldn't legalize it, like crack cocaine or cocaine, but marijuana is not nearly in that same category. Similar, it's not nearly like heroin, and in fact, I believe it is less dangerous than cigarettes. And cigarettes are also dramatically more addictive. So I believe that on whole, this is by far the better path to go.
Right, and I agree. I mean, I do agree with that. And when you're talking about regulation, when you're talking about people who, you've got to really look to see how they're making this marijuana, because there are so many bad strains, and that's the scary part right there. But if you're talking about regulating it and you're looking at your farmers and they're tasked with that, I mean, that's a far safer route. So my question would be, how would you regulate it?
Yeah, well, first of all, you work with the medical community, you work with the scientific community, and you make sure that you're getting a clean product out into commerce. And then you make sure that the people that are selling it, and again, this is the advantage of having it be legal, which is they would have to be selling a certain type of the product that is sanctioned off by the state health department to make sure that it's a safe legal product. Similar to, and I'm not equating this, apples to apples, but it is similar to, you have health inspections in restaurants to make sure that you're serving clean cooked food. So I'm not equating it apples to apples. I'm not saying it's the same as having a hamburger in a restaurant. But by regulating it, you do get the bad stuff out of the system, and you're ensuring that the product that is in commerce is safer. And I also want to stress this, I don't want to make it even seem like the university police departments that I've met with want this legal. They're not endorsing this one way or the other. But I'm telling you, I've met with them. They have significantly more problems with alcohol on their campuses than marijuana. And the reason why they say that is, look, almost every fight that happens at a university, in some bar or something like that, it's almost always really alcohol. They don't say that marijuana is not an issue, but they've never had violence as a result of marijuana.
Yeah, that the alcohol is a bigger issue. Okay, so here's the $50 million question, General. Pennsylvania is a very, very conservative state. We all know that.
I would say the legislature more so than the public, but I understand your point.
I agree with that. The legislature is extremely conservative. So what is the likelihood of this becoming legal, recreational marijuana becoming legal? One lawmaker even suggested putting a referendum on the ballot to get a pulse to see how the public feels about this. From your perspective, Is this going to happen in our lifetime?
Yeah.
The answer to that question is yes, it will happen. I do believe there is one critical piece to this. If the federal government removes marijuana as a Schedule I narcotic, and what that means is right now the federal government literally says that marijuana is as dangerous as heroin. Nobody in their right mind believes that. President Trump has even said, he thinks that needs to be looked at. And I certainly believe that if a president or if a Democrat wins the White House the next time around, that will get changed. And it may get changed even with Donald Trump in the White House. Jeff Sessions was really the barrier to that as the Attorney General. So I think something could change on that. If that gets changed as a Schedule I narcotic, I think this change could happen a lot faster than people realize, because I do believe that even in the Pennsylvania legislature, there are a lot of conservatives that are even more open to this than people realize. Now, having said that, the public is well in front of the politicians on this. So even if the change doesn't happen as fast as I would like it to have, what's happening is states around us are already beginning to move in this direction. You're going to have pretty much all of New England going in this direction very soon. New York is heading in this direction. New Jersey is heading in this direction. This is what's going to eventually happen is the pressure is just going to be enormous to get this thing done.
All right, General DiPasquale, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today. A lot of great information, and we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and have a great day.
Thanks, you too. All right, so what did you think about what we had to say today? Do you have any ideas for future topics you want us to talk about? You can always send us an email at
chick2chick@penwatch.org, and that's with a 2, chick2chick.
I love it. All right.
I do too. Good
Thanks
stuff.
for listening. Thanks for being here today, and we will be back soon to chirp about another topic.